Hello everybody, welcome to Circuits and Boards video game review. Today we have Death Stranding on the docket for this review. This is actually the first video game review during a video. I chose this one just based off of a couple of things I really liked about this game. There's a few things that really stuck out to me, a few things that are just actually borderline groundbreaking in the concept of video games, the storytelling, the animation, just how far out this game actually went. But by no means is any game perfect. What we do here at Circuits and Boards is we review content, usually that relates to gaming, whether that be video gaming or tabletop gaming. Boards or card games or anything of that nature. We'll also lean into video games, and that's what we'll be doing on this one, is the Death Stranding review. What we're doing here is, it looks like I usually break down video games into 5 major categories, that being immersion, graphics, entertainment, content, and gameplay. For this video review, I'm also going to add another category that I'd like to talk more in depth rather than my written review, which is the value of the game. At what price point would this game be worth a buy, no matter what condition or rating I give it overall? Because the monetary attachment to the game is definitely something that's important, and something that is definitely a qualifying factor for actually obtaining this video game and adding it to your collection. So without further ado, let's get into this game called Death Stranding. Now, definitely has high production value. The game is, without saying, the game is absolutely beautiful. There's such great depth in landscaping, such great depth in character recognition, facial features, when they're speaking, when they're engaging, when they're reacting, all that kind of stuff. It definitely plays itself out, and it's definitely evident when you're playing the game. There is a great level of detail when it comes to the actual landscaping, when it comes to just in-game play, not even counting like actual video productions, not even counting when it actually plays like a stop motion video clip for the storyline. All that taken aside, just the actual gameplay is it's breathtaking. I think I've gotten like at least 50 or 60 screenshots just from having to stop playing the game and just sitting there and looking at it. It's definitely pushing the boundaries of what video games can do. It definitely pushes where we are in the context of storytelling with a video game. I can't express how much visually this game actually takes off. It's a great visual masterpiece. But at the same time, just because you have something pretty doesn't mean that it's worthwhile. Moving along to the actual gameplay mechanics of it, I was actually very surprised at how much you could control the character independently. There are vehicles, but most of this is on foot as a character. You can actually control, because you are packaging and delivering packages across the country. You can actually control the lean of the character. So when you're walking around, you'll slip if it's wet and raining outside. If you're not balancing your packages, attaching them to your arms and legs, and you're piling them all on your backpack, and then they're piling over your head. That also leans you forward or leans you left and right. You can actually compensate that with the triggers. I was playing this on the console. It's just the level of control that you have on the character is really, really cool. They definitely went into detail on the control. They definitely hammered out any kind of glitching or rough patches on gameplay and the feel, the mechanics of it. Overall, it was a really solid game on the surface, whether it be visually or whether it be the control of the character. So let's get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the game. So my first category is immersion. Basically, the concept there is how sucked into the world I feel when I'm playing the game. I gave this an 8 out of 10, just because it definitely did feel like a world in of its own. I'm a sucker for open world mechanics, and so any kind of game that's open world, I can go anywhere I want. I can pick and choose the quests that I want, or I can pick and choose when and where I do the missions, how quickly I do the missions. If I want to get sidetracked and look over here, I can. I'm not stuck to the actual mission or stuck to a specific pathway. That's just an automatic A+ in my book. And I feel like almost any game can have open world, or at least pseudo open world, to where it feels open but you're still limited to a map or a fixed area. So the immersion was pretty good. I definitely feel like I got pulled out of the immersive experience due to the storyline. Storyline is way out there. It's pretty progressive is the best way I can describe it, just because you've got a unborn baby strapped to your chest for the entire game, and I would definitely recommend researching a little bit into the storyline, but the storyline's way out there and I don't want to give out any spoilers for anyone who hasn't played it yet. This is more of just an experiential review minus the storyline, but basically you do have an unborn child strapped to your chest that is basically works as a bomb detector, because they're more sensitive to certain creatures that live out in the world, and then you can monitor that sensitivity. So you definitely get pulled out of the immersion experience based off of the storyline itself. It's not necessarily something that is readily believable. You definitely have to suspend your belief to play the game, but it is a really fun and crazy ride because of how crazy the storyline gets and how far it goes out there. The second category is graphics. It's very difficult for me to give any game a 10 out of 10 just because that's basically saying that the graphics are perfect, which by no means do I feel like anything is perfect. There's always room for improvement. There's always something that usually lags with a big major project such as this. So basically I gave it a 9 out of 10 as best as I could give it. Like I said before, the graphics are amazing. If you're looking for a pretty game and you've got a 4K TV and you've got the HDMI connected, you're all hooked up for high definition 4K, definitely get this game just for how great the graphics are and how great the game looks. Next category is entertainment. I gave this a 7 out of 10 due to the fact that it is very entertaining. However, the quests get a little bit repetitive, and I also did get stuck on infrastructure throughout the game. You can build bridges, you can build roads, you can do all that kind of stuff, and it actually is there's a social component to the game. Even though the game's single player, other players can benefit from your structures. If you have an internet connection, it connects and you can build other structures. You can also like other people's structures based on how helpful it was to you. So there's kind of a social component, so I did get kind of swept up in that. I did construct as much roads as I possibly can in the first area of the game. There's pretty much, if you have to divide it, there's basically 3 areas of the map that you go through to make it across the United States. They're by no means a direct representation of the size of the United States. I felt like that was very underrepresented, how close everything was, even though it kept saying that you were moving across the United States going from the East Coast all the way to the West. I felt like that was a little bit that also kind of broke immersion just because of how inaccurate it was. But there's basically three major parts, three major sections. The first section, I did all the roads, which you have to collect a lot of resources to build roads and build infrastructure. So I got sidetracked with that. And then secondly, the missions are kind of the same. It's pick up a package here, deliver it to here. Pick up a package here, deliver it to here. Pick up a package to here, deliver it to here. Oh, by the way, sometimes there's bad guys in between that are trying to rob you. Oh, by the way, there's some creatures that are trying to kill you in between those point A and point B of where you're delivering. So it kind of got, towards the end, it kind of got repetitive, and I stopped doing infrastructure just to grind through the game towards the end. The storyline does pick up towards the end, which definitely compensates for the grindingness of point A to point B quests. But I think a C or a 7 out of 10 is a solid description of the entertainment factor in the game. As for content, the next category, I gave it an 8 out of 10. This also suffered from very similar issues, that the quests got very repetitive. The content got very repetitive. The good thing though is there's 12 chapters in the game, storyline wise, and so there's a lot of gameplay here. I got way distracted with the infrastructure, so that probably added a good 10-15 hours to my gameplay. But there's at least 30 hours worth of gameplay here, as long as you're not just rushing through the content and doing only the main storyline. If you speed through this game, you could probably do it in like 25 hours. If you just focused on strictly the main storyline, you didn't engage in any combat, and you just ran through. Yeah, probably 20-25 hours. So the main storyline is substantial enough to where it would give you a decent amount of compensation for the pay that you would have to do for the game. But overall, I think it earned an 8 out of 10 due to the fact that the content was decent in scope, but it does get repetitive after a while. And then lastly, gameplay, which I kind of define gameplay as the mechanics of the game, how unique those mechanics are, and then just the overall control and feel of the game. If the game's wonky and it feels uncontrollable, or it feels just, kind of difficult to handle the situation, that usually kind of breaks a lot of the other categories. It definitely breaks entertainment, because then it gets frustrating to play. It definitely breaks immersion, because I can't get into the character if I can't control the character. So gameplay is definitely a very important category in my opinion. I gave it an 8 out of 10 again. It definitely had some unique mechanics, like being able to balance yourself left and right with the triggers. But overall, it was very repetitive in the sense of the mechanics didn't go anywhere. The mechanics usually got overweighed or overshadowed by better gear towards the end of the game. You can get better skeletons, you can get better backpacks, and ultimately you just get vehicles. Towards the end of the game, I was just running vehicles the whole way, especially with my roads being built. I was just running vehicles, so I didn't have to worry about my backpack weight limit. I didn't have to worry about the balancing. I didn't have to worry about any of that. Some places were on top of a mountain, so I had to park at the base of the mountain and then just climb up the hill, which still wasn't that bad, considering the fact that I would only carry what was necessary for that location. So towards the end, the mechanics that were unique and started out to be unique kind of got flushed out, which I was kind of disappointed in that. I thought it would progress and grow more naturally rather than just being sidelined. So it definitely gets a B, a positive, above average rating for that, but nothing too crazy, nothing too wild, nothing too groundbreaking. I think the best thing about this game is the graphics. And obviously the storyline is pretty out there, so if you like very unique storylines, you'll most definitely like their storyline. But I think the substantial thing about this game is that it's just kind of pretty. It's a shiny nickel. Not to say that the game's bad, not to say that the game's not worth it, but that is the main thing that's going for it, is that it's just pretty. So overall, with all that combined, I usually add up the totals of the 5 categories, divide by 5 since there is 5 categories, and that gave the total score an 8 out of 10. So a B above average for the game overall, but nothing too crazy, nothing too spectacular. I know this game got hyped up when it came out, and it got really promoted. I think that's also just because of the production level with this game. I mean, it has a pretty famous producer attached to it. It's got famous actors actually portrayed in the character, which I found that actually took away from the immersion. Because anytime you were introduced to a character, not only would it say the character's name in the little, like, while you were playing the game, in the introduction it would say the character's name, but it would also say the actor that was playing that character right underneath it. So I felt that was really pretentious. Like, I didn't need that extra information. Like, if I wanted to go look up who the character was, then I could do that via Google or whatever. I just felt like it was an unnecessary tack on of information. They also did that with music too. There's a really great soundtrack for this game, especially when you're hiking through the mountains. Like, they did a really good job on the soundtrack. But whenever a new song would play, it would tell you the name of the song, and it would tell you the band right there on your screen. And it would stick for a while, like at least 30 seconds to a minute. And I felt like that was totally unnecessary, especially with this whole thing being immersive. Your HUD is practically invisible if you're not in combat and you're not looking through items. If you're just walking, basically the screen's completely transparent. You only see your character, your backpack, what you're carrying, obviously, and then the landscape. So the fact that they just plaster this name over the screen and there's nothing you can do about it, you can't edit that, you can't change that in settings. I tried. Completely killed immersion. Other than that, those were kind of the main things that I had issue with, is that, you know, there is negativity. There is some negative elements if you're just a shiny penny. If you're just a shiny penny and you don't really have much things to offer in addition to that. But by no means do I think that this is, you know, a bad game. I think that the 8 out of 10 is a perfect representation, a quantifiable representation of what this game is. It's above average game. It's not spectacular. It's not bad. And I would definitely, for the last section, which basically leads to the last section, I would definitely say that if you can get this game for anywhere around $30, I would think that it's worth it. Anywhere around that price point, it's definitely worth it. I don't think this game merits a full price point of $60. I think $40 you're pushing it. If you just really want this game, or you really like pretty games, or you really like storylines that are kind of crazy out there, then by all means push it to $40. But I think this is a solid game at $30. With the 8 out of 10 rating, that's kind of where I feel like this would be the best bang for your buck. But overall, it's a decent game. Just nothing spectacular, nothing to write home about by any means. But this has been a review for Death Stranding. If you want to hear more, or if you want to hear more of my explanation, you can definitely read the review that I have on my website, circuitsandboards.org. I also upload there usually at least once a month. I'm going to start doing more video reviews about the same content, but I do appreciate you guys listening, and then go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a comment for other games that I can do, and if I missed anything, good, bad, or otherwise, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. I'll definitely try and get to those, but I do appreciate the listen, and thank you.